Happy Taco Thursday, everybody. I know we're a little late. That's on me, not on our guests are saying, but we're here and we're going to be talking about the Lonestar Showdown, the Cowboys versus Texans preview. Before we get into that, I got to give a shout out to our guest, Carlos, who's the host of Just Fans podcast and bringing on the Blitz podcast and contributor writer for R. Esquina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got it right. So
yeah,
I appreciate you for Carlos being on the show. And you got anything to say, Shane?
No. I mean, the season kind of spoke for itself. I don't think we're going to win, but we can still do the show if you want to.
Yeah. It's one of those seasons where you just like.
Let's let Carlos talk. I'd rather hear more of the Texans. I'm tired of talking about the Cowboys. I talk about them all week on the radio. Let's talk about the Texans a little bit. Let's preview them.
Yeah, it's the Texan preview. We're just here.
Yeah. Hey, well, first of all, appreciate y'all for having me on the show.
No doubt.
It's always an honor, even though Cowboys fans, no, I'm just kidding. No, but I appreciate y'all seriously for having me on. Thank you. So yeah, I'm a contributing writer for R. Esquina. They credentialed me to go and so I'm usually in the Texans press box. Sometimes on Sundays here and there. It just depends on which game or whatnot, and just kind of write about the Latino players in sports. I'm currently working on when the Texans faced off against the Colts a few weeks ago. I interviewed Rigoberto Sanchez and just kind of asked him about a few things and writing a piece on him as well. And so been a pretty interesting experience as of late. It's like a whole another level. Started podcasting like 3 years ago, so it's been a pretty awesome feeling afterwards. But man, let's talk some Texans, man. So the Texans had their last primetime game against the Detroit Lions, and honestly I thought the Texans were going to get pretty much blown out by the Lions, because Lions are coming in with a top offense, and the Texans were coming out of another primetime game, the Halloween game against how do you call it, the New York Jets. So, and it was one of those where you're like, how do you lose to the Jets? You had of course Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers have a little bit of chemistry, but it's been quite a while since they've linked up, and then suddenly they started linking up there, and apparently after the Texans game it hasn't really been going so well for them regardless. But I think the Jets defeat was kind of like a wake-up call for the Texans and what they need to fix in the offensive line, which has been the biggest weak spot for the Houston Texans coming in through the season. It's been the main consistent thing. The defense has been has stepped up. Like they're a top, I think if I'm not mistaken, top 5 defense, and they bring it. However, why aren't they winning games, right? Why have they lost the last few games? And that's very simple. It's when your offense can't produce as much as it should. You got your defense out there on the field, and guess what happens? They get tired, plays happen, and then somebody misses the coverage, and out of nowhere there's a touchdown. But that's what happens when your offense doesn't goes 3 and out, punts the ball, and then you got your defense out there immediately. So that's been a recurring issue for the Texans, and that's what I believe has been a contributing factor. Sorry, my dogs are all over the place. I think that's what the biggest problem has been for the Houston Texans, that offensive line and the offense that has been just a detriment to them. You saw it in the people saw it in the Detroit Lions game. It was a close game, much closer than I originally anticipated. But the Texans were doing amazing. I mean, yeah, in a game where you have 5 interceptions, right? You expect to win with a 14-point lead, and second half comes in, no adjustments are made, and the Texans don't score any points whatsoever in the second half. And the Lions took advantage of it, and that was it. End of story. So that's what the Texans are facing with right now.
Let me break it down for you a little further than that, Carlos, if you don't mind, because many people know Cowboys on my team, but since I work in radio, I cover pretty much almost all of Texas sports, at least in the market. And I do also watch the Texans games, and it's a lot more nuanced than, I mean, obviously what you're saying is correct, but one thing the Texans and the Cowboys have both dealt with this year has been injuries. And whereas the Texans are lucky enough that they haven't lost most of their best players, they've lost enough key players on both sides of the ball to affect it. Y'all's offensive line has seen, I believe, 9 different players start a game this year, and we're only at the halfway point. The only players who started game 1 all the way up to now have been the tackles. That's Tunsil and Howard. I think Mason has been in and out of the lineup as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. But Stephon Diggs out for the year. Y'all lost a lot of games without Nico Collins, and Joe Mixon was out for a minute as well, and that took a lot of the running game away from y'all, because as well as Dameon Pierce has been between the tackles, he didn't have that outside the edge threat that Joe Mixon still has for you as the primary back. On the defense, y'all been able to get a lot of pressure with guys like Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. One thing that I really, really liked about DeMeco Ryans when he was at the Niners is that he knew how to draw up a game plan on the defense side of the ball to adequate his team's talent compared to the other team's offensive skill set. And whereas this team, y'all's defense has lost a lot of guys. Y'all lost Christian Harris, you lost Jeff Okudah, you lost Mario Edwards, if I'm not mistaken, and he was actually a big factor in y'all's front 7 rotation. And y'all been able to overcome that. Players like Azeez Al-Shaair, players like the Jimmy Ward came over from San Francisco to Houston, who were familiar with this defense and have filled in, I would say, admirably well. Right now, y'all's best secondary player has been Jalen Petrie, both coverage and I would say, obviously, from a run stop standpoint, I was a big fan of him out of Baylor. I thought I saw a guy who fit that modern nickel / single high safety look, because a lot of safeties nowadays have to do dual roles, and I thought he did that really well. And one thing, and that's the difference between the Cowboys and Texans, is that the Texans not only have a better run organization, but they have the depth and coaching to overcome the inadequacies of where the roster stands. The Cowboys roster didn't get better. We can go back to after the Packers game. And Aaron, if I may, I know I've talked for like 2 minutes straight, and Carlos, I apologize, but I need to get
you're good, bro. Good.
I came in a little prepared for this one. The Cowboys came in with major holes at defensive tackle, didn't address it. Running back, didn't address it. No, Ezekiel Elliott is not an addressing it unless it's 2016. It is not addressing the running back position.
I don't.
They didn't address the wide receiver position for the wide receiver 3. Drafting someone like Ryan Flournoy is a developmental project down the line. It didn't address it for the 2024 season. And as far as the offensive line goes, Tyler Guyton is very much a project player you took with the first round pick. Me and Aaron talked about this. I liked his potential, but we saw his tape. And you saw him play at Oklahoma. He took snaps at left and right tackle. He was much more dominant as a right tackle, which, and I put this out there in the air, he might be the right tackle of the future. Especially because Terrence Steele, if you cut him this year, as opposed to him first cut, you do save $14.5 million in cap space. And they have guys like Tyler Smith and Micah Parsons looking to get extensions. So the nuance of these two Texas teams is the Texans haven't lost their quarterback. Sophomore slump aside, the offensive line has gotten worse as the season's gone along, as well as gotten hurt. You've lost a lot of weapons, so there's a lot of nuance to why the sophomore slump has happened. But y'all are better coached. Y'all have better players that are healthy, and the scheme fits with the guys you have out there. The scheme the Cowboys has run on the offense was good in the 80s. Whenever they let Kellen Moore go, which was the right move, it was the right move to let Kellen Moore go because we gotten the most out of him that we could. They brought in the West Coast offense, which the last time it was a consistent threat was when Joe Montana was taking snaps. And they expected, it would be quick out passes and get out the ball quick from Dak Prescott's hands, and he's going to be an MVP candidate all over again. It doesn't work in today's games because nowadays defense, they are able to overcome that sort of thing because they're much faster and much more aware of the pass than they were in the old days. It's an outdated system, and coaching has been a factor of it. Coaching has been bad, the depth's been bad, they've been hurt, and the front office is inept. But, what do I know? As Jerry Jones points out, radio guys don't really know nothing, do we?
I heard about that. I was like, when I saw that video, I was like, what? You really?
Sorry, I know I went on like a long rant there. I had to get all that out.
You're good, brother. You're good. I will say this, though, to your point. You talked about the offensive. Actually, to be honest with you, the offensive line for the Texans haven't really had many injuries. It's mainly just been Kenyon Green that went out, and that was one of the Nick Casario's draft picks. But that was the biggest. I want to say the weak spot in the offensive line. Shaq Mason, which they got last season during the offseason from Tampa Bay. was phenomenal last season. And this year he has shown a lot of regression. Like he's been getting, he's shown more regression, and I get that comes with time. That has come with time.
He's
Honestly, it's
32,
not.
something like that.
Yeah. So it's and I think they signed him for, if I'm not mistaken, 3 years on there. So he's got another year coming up. But and then you have a switch amongst like Juice Scruggs as a center, but then it was like Patterson, but it's still the same the same guys from last year. Really, there was nobody else that I can't think off the top of my head that they got. Titus Howard is still there, and Laramie Tunsil's still there. But they haven't really gone out much with injuries except for Patterson when he got the concussion in the Jets game, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, then again, who doesn't get injured at MetLife Stadium at this moment?
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Rudy. I saw the comment. Thank you, Rudy.
And so the thing with Jalen, and then I know you mentioned Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie, his rookie year was absolutely phenomenal. That Tampa 2 system with Lovie Smith was like his bread and butter. He was great. Then last season when D'Amico came in, the system just wasn't a fit for him, and you saw like a regression, and people were like, wow,
he's pigeonholed.
It's fallen off the face of the earth. And then this season, I wrote a piece on Petrie, how they were going to use him this season, and it was they were using him as they were in Baylor in the old star position, like a little closer to the line of scrimmage, almost kind of like a hybrid outside, a hybrid linebacker mixed with safety or whatever. And that's why you see.
We used to run the star position a lot in Dallas before Dan Quinn left, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And
exactly, and so that has been a better fit for him. I will say this: Jalen Petrie, if you saw that Detroit Lions game, had the game of his probably NFL career. He was all over the place, but before that, it was a little bit like, I guess, I don't know if it was the way he was used or how they were using him. It feels like it wasn't a consistency. It was consistent. Like they would use him in the star position, then they would move him back to safety. Honestly, I can tell you that when they move him to safety and he has to play man with somebody else, you can't do that. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams touchdown. That was Jalen Petrie covering Devontae Adams, and it was kind of like questionable, like, why didn't you have Derek Stingley cover Devontae Adams one-on-one? And it was, but whatever, things happen, I guess. But in that aspect, yes, I think the Texans are in a better coaching position right now than the Cowboys are.
By far.
D'Amico is a natural leader. He has the respect of everybody in the locker room. So that, I think our problem, the Texans' problems compared to what the Cowboys are dealing with right now are kind of like, sorry, my camera angle's like.
No, you're fine. The only similarities between their problems is health. It's just y'all been banged up a lot as well, but y'all have had the talent and coaching to overcome it.
You're absolutely right. Losing Stephon Diggs was detrimental for this offense. I mean, Nico Collins losing him too, and then they were still putting close games. When you look at it that way, yeah, I mean it's definitely, you're like, well, Nico Collins is went out with a hammy, missed like 5 games. Was close to coming back last week, but they decided to kind of just rest him up last minute. But he should be good to go against Dallas. He was at practice today. Then against losing Stephon Diggs, you had Tank Dell being the main guy with no Nico Collins, and then you had to have other receivers step in. John Mechie, which we saw score his first NFL touchdown against the Lions, that was
dope.
That was amazing, coming back, with his battles, being selected in 2022 from Alabama, and then dealing with a torn ACL at the time, a guy that was going to be pretty picked high up, but because of the injury, it kind of made his stock go down. And then after that, doesn't get a start in his rookie season because he's diagnosed with leukemia. And so he has to miss the entire season. He came back last season in like September, if I'm not mistaken, and then, had a few highlights here and there, not too many, but this season we saw a lot of them during preseason, specifically against the Giants. I mean, I guess you don't really count that as his first NFL touchdown because it's preseason, right? But officially, yes, it was great to see him get that touchdown after that journey that he's come up through. Xavier Hutchinson, like, he's another like underrated receiver. The only problem was that separation. Is just they couldn't get that separation, and then you saw CJ holding the ball a little bit longer than usual, and just kind of where do I go? And it created a lot of offensive situations there. But that's what the Texans are kind of dealing with right now.
Yeah, staying on the offense, the Texans are leading the AFC South with a 6-4 record, but some of the fans are leaning towards they want to get rid of Bobby Slowick. Are you among those disgruntled fans? And if so, what do you think? Is that a justifier or is it overreaction?
I think right now in the middle of the season, well, not in the middle, but like right now in the season, I don't think it benefits anything. I don't think it's the right move because at this point now, you would cause more confusion amongst play calling and players and all that. I think if you're really trying to make a run, a deep run specifically in the playoffs, you just got to let it happen, and then whatever needs to happen during the off season needs to happen. Bobby Slowick does have a lot of conservative play calling. He it's usually run pass or run whatever.
Predictable stuff.
Yeah, very predictable stuff. I mean, this is the Kyle Shanahan offense. This is bootlegs. You name it. Disguise the run, but disguise the run well, and then throw, and then
yeah.
The thing I heard, I think speaking of fans, I heard somebody no, and it wasn't even a fan. It was I can't remember who the announcer was saying that saying like, well, what Bobby is showing for the Texans is the Kyle Shanahan offense, but this is like a third of it, like the very basics, the beginning steps of the Kyle Shanahan, not the full book yet or something like that, and it became predictable. And you hear it too with the coaching that they're like, well, not many teams do any adjustments offensively, and it's kind of like, oh, I thought they kind of did, and so it's almost like, what are we getting? It's almost like a little bit of a gaslight, But for me, to answer your question fully, I don't think it does anything I think it's more hurtful for the Texans if they were to release Bobby Slowick during the middle of the season or during this time than it would be if they just decide not to, or they decide to let him go towards the off season where you have a little bit more chance to explore other options.
Yeah, and typically when it comes to releasing offensive coordinators, you only do it if there's obvious confusion and incohesion amongst people in the locker room. You look at what the Bills did last year with Joe Brady. Was it Joe Brady or Ken, I think it was Joe Brady. Yeah, Joe Brady.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, and they promoted Ken Dorsey to offensive coordinator, and it worked out because his system was going to be a lot more simple for what the offense needed, whereas Brady's wasn't really meshing well, and that was sort of like everyone agreed, okay, this isn't working here. So, and Slowick, he does come from the Shanahan tree, but as we've seen more and more this year, the Shanahan tree, the Shanahan offense, as we've seen it, you look at the Niners, you look at New Orleans. The offense is starting to get figured out a little bit around the league, but what makes a lot of these better offensive coordinators better than others is how they can adjust to defenses adjusting to them. Look at someone like Sean McVay. When teams have adjusted to them, he comes back in the second half or wherever he adjusts to, and they're able to overcome that and call different plays to reconfuse the defense. Think about I already used the Sean McVay example, but I was going to say Matt LaFleur.
Matt LaFleur, great example.
In Green Bay. So Bob Slowick, unfortunately, it has nothing to do with the system. It's more about the man himself. Does he have that ability? And that's something that Cowboys fans are real familiar with someone like Kellen Moore. When the offense was moving, they were able to run off the script. And for those that don't know, the offensive script is typically anywhere from the team's first 10 to 15 plays. They don't really derail from it unless something comes up or for whatever reason. And after that, then they can start making the actual in-game adjustments. If your offensive coordinator is stuck, as in the defense has an answer for every single play, then you have a problem because that means that they're really good at the highs, but they can't overcome the lows. And the Texans, even for all their injuries, have more than enough talent to make up for it in no offense, a very weak AFC South.
It is. Just call it what it is. It's a weak AFC South.
Yeah, me and Aaron talked about when we predicted the season coming into it. We talked about how the only team we saw really be a threat to the Texans would have been the Colts, but I didn't trust Anthony Richardson, and neither did the Colts apparently. I liked what the Titans are building, but they have no quarterback. If you look at the Titans, if you take away the quarterback, they have a really good roster.
Mm-hmm.
but the quarterback is going to change all of it.
There's a lot of talent there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Jags are obviously in free fall, so we don't even count the Jags. So the Texans are probably going to win this division, pretty handily. What you want to see is, can they take the next step in the playoffs? Because what's happened in C.J. Stroud, I wouldn't really necessarily call it a slump, because he's still winning, he's still making some passes. It's just, unfortunately, without his weapons there, he's having to process things a lot faster than they did last year. Last year, his weapons got open quicker, and he was able to get the ball out, and the offense opened up. Now the offense is kind of coming down. You mentioned it, Slovic isn't really adjusting on the fly, and C.J. Stroud is going to have to make a lot of these plays on his own. So I think the game is just sped up more for a second-year quarterback who had a lot of first-year success. And this isn't nothing new. What we're going to see after this year is, can C.J. Stroud get back to where we expect him to be, or was it a one-year wonder?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with it on that. I agree 100% with the fact that the AFC South is a weak division. Yes, I also thought that the Colts were going to be the team that kind of were neck and neck with the Texans, but then for a little while it was kind of getting there. But
they're not going anywhere.
They're not. They're really not. It's like at this point, it's like, you know what? Just use whatever you have left and start developing Anthony Richardson. I honestly didn't trust Anthony Richardson either. The decision-making skills that he has are beyond me. And it's odd. And then, he'll kind of quit on you for a little bit and then, need a break here and there. But then Joe Flacco was an interesting story last season, but this season, I mean, those interceptions have kind of hindered him a little bit. But I don't, again, age. Say it again.
Brought him back down to earth.
Yeah,
a little bit.
It brought him back down to earth. Like it kind of got
Flacco.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I went to a game with a friend, and then he was like, "Wait, Joe Flacco's still playing?" I was like, "Yeah," like, yeah, exactly. Joe Flacco's still playing, but yeah, nonetheless, the Jaguars, like you put it well, you paid Trevor Lawrence, and then what else do you have to show for it? I apologize. Overpaid Trevor Lawrence, and then you really don't have nothing else to show for it. And the Titans, you said it yourself also. I feel like I'm reiterating what you're saying, but it's true. They have talent around them, but Will Levis is not the answer.
Yep.
And definitely neither is Mason Rudolph. So
that Titans team reminds me so much of Tampa Bay the season before they got Tom Brady, that they had really everything else you needed, except for maybe one or two players, except the quarterback. They had that defense is actually really good. That defense statistically is one of the best in the league, especially against the run. I think they could still use an extra receiver, but they need a quarterback. They're still rebuilding an offensive line, which looks a lot better than it did a couple of years ago after the best players got hurt and just retired. But they're still at least 2 years away from competing with the Texans. And the way the Colts are right now, if I trust the way that team is building, I'm not sure that Shane Steichen's going to make it out of Indy at the end of this year, just because he was supposed to come in and be this quarterback guru and do the Anthony Richardson what he did to Jalen Hurts. The Colts, not the Colts, the Jags are a team that has just taken one of the league's considered best quarterbacks and has just pretty much done everything they can to make it worse for him.
Yeah.
And that's not all entirely on him. I do think that the quarterback play has something to do with it, but as Aaron will tell you, we're a lot more nuanced. We don't just straight out look at just like one player, what goes on around it. And the Jags, in my opinion, have hurt Trevor Lawrence in that way. So the rest of those teams in the South, they're going to at least need 2 years to even touch what Houston's at.
Yeah.
This is pretty much safe in the AFC South for the Texans. But going back into to the Texans, what has been your thoughts on Joe Mixon and Danielle Hunter on this team so far?
Man, I'll tell you what. The acquisition. So I think originally the Texans were trying to go for Saquon, and then that didn't work out. And that's understandable. But when you see like Joe Mixon, it's a lot of stats were pretty comparable, and then you got him for like a lower price than what the Eagles got for Saquon. And so I know that they were trying to push for Saquon for sure, but in the end it didn't work out. But honestly, Joe Mixon, besides the injury, since he came back from the injury, ankle injury, he was getting 100 more than 100 yards per game. So he was, I think the last game was the only game where he had less than 100 yards since his return against Detroit. And so honestly, when Nico Collins went out, that was the only spark that the offense really had. and you saw it against Green Bay, which I understand it was a loss. You saw it against the Jets. You saw it against, but regardless, he was a bright spot in that offense, and so. And I get the Texans also run offense isn't that great right now, but Joe Mixon, the way he's able to maneuver around, linemen, like he creates those extra yards. I think his only game again that wasn't a highlight reel for him was this past game against Detroit. Joe Mixon has been a wonderful acquisition, and I think that was a really good signing. Danielle Hunter, on the other hand, by the way, I was in the Texas locker room and I got to meet Danielle Hunter.
Nice.
Yeah.
This was like he is really nice person, very down to earth.
Yep.
But he is
big dude, real big.
Yeah.
Huge. He's a massive dude. I was like, yeah. But who did I can't remember did y'all see that highlight where he like put the guy on a blender? I can't remember who he put on a blender from the Lions. He just did this spin move on him and just made him look silly. He had to like look around.
Sewell?
Is it? I can't remember who it was. Let me see. It's gonna bug me if I don't.
Sewell's an offensive tackle.
Yeah, it was somebody in the offensive line from the Lions, but it was.
Yeah.
My goodness, it was.
I think it was. I've seen it. I'm just trying to remember who
was it. Panay?
I think it was Panay.
Panay Sewell, right? Sewell.
Yeah.
He put him on Panay became his highlight reel for Danielle Hunter on that one. It was him being acquired was one of the best things. I mean, I think many Texans fans were like, well, now that you're losing Jonathan Grenard, who was a really key factor in the Texans defense, they lost him to Minnesota, and it's like, well, how do you replace a guy like Jonathan Grenard? Oh, enter Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, okay. Swapped.
It was really just a swap if you think about it at some point. And so I think that alone was amazing. And then when you have Will Anderson Jr., who's actually hurt right now with an ankle, I don't think he's going to play against the Cowboys.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play. But who
would it be? Jerry Hughes. Okay,
yeah. And it's one of those where like they're probably not going to play him. I'm 100% sure they're not going to play him just because, like, I hate to say it this way. No offense.
It's a bye week. I got you. That's fine.
It's against the Cowboys, but
I know.
Yeah.
I know. We know.
But
the Cowboys fans have been saying this for years. We get it.
Yeah, and then D'Amico Ryans. I mean, he's one of those coaches that likes to rest their guys until they're fully healed. Or give that little extra rest if he's able to do it. But teaming them up, I mean, on paper, that defense looked. At the beginning of the offseason, we were like, wow, that defense, the offense looks great on paper, and so does the defense look stacked. And then I think as now we're into week 11, whatever it is. It's like now you look at it now in this perspective, you're like, well, we were right about the defense. The defense has been pretty has been a great factor for the Texans. Offense is, it's up and down. Sometimes, they have that during the first half, they do fine, but then during the second half, that's where they fall apart. But Danielle Hunter, great acquisition. Same thing with Joe Mixon. Those were great acquisitions.
So more than likely, if I had to guess, just based on how y'all's rotations have gone, Jerry Hughes is the likely starter across from Danielle Hunter, which means for this game. By the way, Aaron, it sounds like Asim Richards is going to get a second start again at left tackle, which I'm cool with because he actually played pretty well last week, filling in for Guyton, who's dealing with a neck injury. Again, I think Guyton should be a right tackle, but that's neither here nor there. But that also means Danielle Hunter, who's primarily a left side defensive end, and those that don't know, the left defense covers the right tackle. It just depends on your view of the side of the ball. That is probably the worst matchup of the game for the Cowboys because even though I will give Terrence Steele, who is a former Red Raider like myself, even though I will give him credit, he looked marginally better this year than he was last year coming off an injury. He just doesn't have it anymore. The 2021-2022 version of Terrence Steele that we saw, who was a menace in the run game and who had been developed into a solid pass protector, it just doesn't have that same sort of push he once did. And I think the Cowboys see that. I think the Cowboys see that their first round pick from this last year is better suited for the right side. And they can free up $14.5 million with a post June 1st cut this March. on their current right tackle, and they're going to need it for their other guys that they signed. So I'm just putting that out there for Cowboys fans. But I already mentioned Danielle Hunter versus Terrence Steele as probably the worst matchup of the game. A matchup I'm actually intrigued with is if he plays, because you said Nico Collins is likely to play, right?
Most likely, yeah. Unless I would take it as the ultimate set of disrespect if they don't play Nico Collins because they want to rest him longer. But I don't see that happening. I'm pretty sure Collins plays. I don't see an option where he doesn't, unless bar injury, God forbid.
I think it'd be interesting to see, just because the Cowboys love to keep Trayvon Diggs on the right side. They don't really him all that much this year. They haven't. A lot of times it's been Trayvon Diggs on the right side, and it's either been someone like Amani Daruwarie, if I pronounce his name wrong, I'm sorry.
You did better than I would.
Or Kalen Carson on the left. Kalen Carson got benched late in the game for Israel Mukwamu, who's been more of a nickel guy, but he played, I would say, admirably for the snaps he got. Yeah. So I think more than likely he's probably going to get the start this week at corner, if I had to guess. So I'll be interested to see if Nico plays, like how he does against these cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Especially just because the one thing these Cowboys cornerbacks do is they play well with length, and that's something that Nico Collins is very much a good one-on-one type receiver. Whereas in the slot, you have someone along the lines of Tank Dell who's really good at breaking early, and that's something the Cowboys have struggled with, is covering the slot. They have been so bad at covering the slot, and that's going to be probably the area that I think CJ Stroud is going to target the most.
I think at that point, once Nico returns, they're definitely, they got to put Tank Dell out there, and I think he's going to get that separation. Tank is Tank is not your number one receiver. That's what they were using. They were using his primary receiver, but obviously, based on his height, I mean, CJ would have to be. CJ is pretty accurate. I know it hasn't been shown as much lately, but CJ himself is pretty accurate. So obviously, Nico Collins is a much easier target than Tank Dell is.
Sure.
So having Nico Collins is definitely going to help him out, and it's going to spread the ball around with Tank Dell. So now that he's got dual threat, and then John Mechie again came and had a pretty decent game last week. Maybe this is one of those things where, hey, it's your chance. Keep going and see if you show up again and get yourself in there, make a name for yourself. You know
what? I'm gonna tell you this right now. In the slot, because a lot of teams have ran a lot of 4 wide or 3-1 looks where you have like a tight end put in the slot. It hasn't really been Jordan Lewis, your primary slot defender, that's been picked on. He's been playing well for you majority of this year. It's whoever in the slot is covered up one-on-one with Donovan Wilson, who's our box safety, who honestly last year played more of that star position you talked about.
Yeah.
He has been terrible in coverage. He has been liability is probably a light way of putting Aaron, right? Like he seems to be the guy they pick on outside of Kalen Carson, who's a rookie. Donovan Wilson is usually the guy they pick on the most. So whoever's lined up in the slot against Donovan Wilson when he's asked to play coverage, I would pick on him if I was the other team.
I still don't know why they haven't put Wanye Thomas in.
He's been hurt. He had a concussion.
I forgot about that.
And so I don't know if he's going to play. So he's up in the air.
I will say this for the Cowboys. Kamari Lassiter has been a rookie that the Texans got this offseason. He has been balling out. I think he leads rookies. I think with 5 interceptions. He is very for the rookie. So he's one of those that was Jared Goff's nightmare on Sunday until he went out with a concussion. So you may not see him out there. I don't think he might clear the concussion protocol by then. But as of today, he did not practice. So I don't think y'all are going to see Kamari Lassiter.
It doesn't matter. Cooper Rush is throwing the ball.
Let him rest. Let him rest. Get ready.
Let him rest it out.
The Cowboys and Bobby Belt of 105 through the fan in Dallas, and who's also a Cowboys insider, put this out there that the Cowboys, Cooper Rush in this past game had the single worst game amongst quarterbacks with air yards per pass. And for those that don't know, air yards is literally where the ball comes out.
Yeah.
In relation to the line of scrimmage as opposed to where the receiver runs. And they ran so many quick outs and screens that it was so – I'm sorry. I'm sorry cussing there. Yeah. That was frustrating. Is a good way to put it. Yeah, it was frustrating. But it was also like such a gimmicky offense, and Cooper Rush looked lost. He didn't look like the Cooper Rush that Cowboys fans were comfortable with when he went 5-1 as a starter. He looks like someone who's never taken a snap in there. You know, he looked like Tom Savage. He's like Tom Savage.
Oh, you brought Tom Savage into this.
You're taking it back a little bit.
Yeah, brought us back a little bit. Wow.
I meant all the disrespect, and I put all the disrespect honestly on Mike McCarthy, but it is what it is.
I thought you were gonna say Brucey from the longest yard or something.
No,
it slipped because of the popcorn. It slipped because of the popcorn.
No, because that pass, that little like pass like this, that ball at least went forward.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, ooh.
So it's not all on Cooper Rush, but that was still pathetic.
Do you expect Trey Lance at any time during the game?
I hope
maybe
so.
A couple plays.
Plays, flip flopping.
I hope so, just because like it got so bad against the Eagles games that fans were chanting, "We want Trey, we want Trey," and Trey didn't really do much better, but he offered you something with his legs, and it's been talked about a lot. That if Trey Lance is out there, the passing offense is essentially a null and void. It doesn't matter like if you have a Jake Ferguson or a CD Lamb or whoever. Yeah. You can just run the read option with him and Rico Dowdle and have Hunter Luepke, who's been a really good fullback for you this year. He's just been on a really crappy team. Hunter Luepke's been a good player, Aaron, right? Hunter Luepke's been a solid fullback for you. Let him be your lead blocker. Get yards that way. It's boring. It's gimmicky. It's very college-esque. It's Arkansas Wildcat 2008 era, but it'll get you more yards than what you're doing now.
It's like, why not? It's the way you might as well.
Yeah,
It's one of those games you just like.
I'm gonna watch because I've invested so much in my life, and also because since I work in radio, I have to at least stay up to date with this kind of stuff. But I'm ready for draft season at this point.
Yeah, I'll be actually at Arlington at the game. So
nice.
Yeah.
Tell Daniil I said hi.
Hey, Shane says hi. Who? Say hey, Shane, dude. He's on the radio.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there Monday. I'm leaving early in the morning, trying some barbecue over there, and then we'll see where it goes.
My next thing is I usually say 3 keys to victory. So what is your 3 keys to how you're gonna beat the Cowboys? Just
get dressed, get off the bus, and don't forget kickoff time.
Show up.
Man, when you won the game already.
Show up. No, I mean, honestly, running the ball with Joe Mixon, and then running the ball with Joe Mixon, Nico Collins, Tank Dell combo. Spread the ball with Tank Dell. Throw it up to Nico Collins, who's your most dependable receiver now that you have him back. And then defense create turnovers, pressure Cooper Rush or Trey Lance, whoever's playing, because they're great at doing that. So make them get scared, make them do mistakes, turn over the ball, and go home.
Dalton Schultz revenge game.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you this. You would think so, but
How about this? Does he catch 3 or more? Does he get 3 or more catches?
I could say that. Would you consider that a Dalton Schultz revenge game if he caught 3 or more?
No, a revenge game for me is you got to score a touchdown or 2.
Score a touchdown. Okay.
You got to factor into the final result of winning the game in some kind of way.
So if he scores a touchdown, then you would officially call it a revenge game.
Maybe. The thing is, if it's a revenge game, it means that you kind of went off. So like if you're if you're a middle linebacker and you got 10 or more tackles, that's a revenge game. Yeah. If you're a cornerback and you got 2 interceptions, that's a revenge game. It's like you made an obvious impact on the outcome.
Right. Yeah.
So like a touchdown, sure, but if you got 2 touchdowns and like 6 catches and 75 yards, then that's an obvious revenge game.
Yeah, at that point. But I mean, Dalton Schultz, he has helped the Texans offense. He has last season definitely a lot more than this season. This season has been kind of like, hey, we forgot we had Dalton Schultz on the offense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think he had like a few couple catches last week against the Lions, and that's about it. One key one for sure, but then it's been, I think they're using him more as a blocker at times than most. But that's about it.
All right, Aaron, I'll give you 3 keys to victory. I don't think they're going to win, but I'll give you 3 keys. There's just 3 areas that I think the Cowboys can attack Houston essentially. And the Cowboys did what I said last week a little bit against the Eagles, and then they just folded. So, number 1, A-gap blitzes, because the weak spot of this offensive line is going to be between the guard and center. I love Jarrett Patterson, but like the interior of the offensive line has been inconsistent this year. No offense. And we saw a lot this past game when we saw Micah Parsons and Marvin Overshown, your guy, do a lot of A-gap blitzes, and they run a lot of pressure up the middle. And so I think even though the offensive line, you talked about it's played better. I would say, my opinion, it's been kind of inconsistent throughout the year. That's kind of been the weak spot between the center and Shaq Mason's kind of that weak spot of the offensive line. That's going to be the A-gap blitz you're going to want to take advantage of. Number 2 is going to be, even if you apply pressure to C.J. Stroud, you kind of want to force it deep, because a lot of his worst passes have come when he tries to take a shot down the field. When he has those shorter passes and has more control, he's able to find a rhythm. A lot of the interceptions he's thrown this year is because he's trying to make something happen. A lot of quarterbacks do that. This isn't really just on him, but that's something he's fallen into in a sophomore slump. And Carlos, I think you would attest, he has done that a few times this year.
Oh yeah, 100%. He's I still don't call it. I still don't believe in a stop. Yes, he has created more mistakes. I will say that.
But it's not on him. That's the point.
Yeah, I'm not fully convinced that it is a sophomore slump just yet. Because given the injuries, given the offensive line and I'll be honest with you, the lack of creativity in the play calling, I think those have factored in, and the fact that with the offensive line that you have, at this point, it has thrown off that accuracy. It's almost like borderline PTSD. You got to look around because you know that the offensive line can't protect you as much as they did last season. And it's crazy. It's baffling to me because this season they invested more money on that offensive line than they did last season. I always bring this example up. Last season, one of the best games that C.J. Stroud played was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I remember last season, T.J. Watt was on a whole rampage, and they were playing the Steelers. And guess what? The Texans had an offensive line last season that they were constantly rotating. It was like you don't know who's going to start last week, and it kind of made you a little bit worrisome and give you a little bit of anxiety because you're like, who's going to protect C.J. Stroud? I don't know what happened, but that particular game, the offensive line held in for C.J. Stroud with prayers and duct tape, as one of my co-hosts calls it, and they held T.J. Watt down, and he had no sacks on that game, which was phenomenal, which is crazy to me. And then I think C.J. went on record and said he felt that Steelers game, that's where he felt like he belonged in the NFL, when he knew that he was at a different level. And now coming into the season with all the amount of money that they spent, I can't remember what the actual amount was, but it's a very expensive O-line that still can't protect CJ. So I can see why he has to adjust. His dropbacks are crazy. Now he's using his legs not to step up in the pocket or run, or extend the first downs, as he's running because he needs to get away from defenders. Like that's basically it. I wish he would run more for the first down, because I think that would help alleviate some of that pressure, short check downs or whatnot. But he has been playing. I mean, he does play hero ball. He wants to throw it deep, like you said. He wants to get that highlight. And I think that's what he has to. It's part of the growth and development, really. It's just you have to be smarter with it and don't hold on to that ball that long, because, if you don't see a play develop, use your legs, scoot, get that yardage, and it'll help you alleviate some of that pressure.
Yeah, and my last point of emphasis, by the way, that's a good way to put it, is you talk about the line of pressure. Is if you're going to run the ball, and this is like something the Texans have been really good at, is stopping the run. I mean, if you go back to last week, I think they gave just over 100 yards on the ground, but it was after like 30-something carries. And if you take away that one long, I think it's like 20 yards by Jahmyr Gibbs, that one long run, that's like 30 carries for like 80 yards or something like that. So if you're going to run the ball, honestly, as surprising as it may sound, and the Cowboys have not been good at this, you need to run more on the edges. You need more on the outside, because if you try and run up the middle, that they're going to find a way to stop you. Texans, I think, allow a yard or a yard and a half less in through the middle than they do on the edges. So if you're going to run the ball, it has to be on the outside. Personally, I'm going left because Austin Richards and Tyler Smith are two of your better run blockers you have on this team anyway. Leave with your fullback to the outside. You have your backup edge, as you talked about. Will Anderson won't be there, so take advantage of that if you can. That little area is going to be your best chance to develop a running game in this game. would still abandon it anyway because they're gonna get down early and settle for field goals. But that's 3 areas. If the Cowboys were to win this game, is how they do it.
I would agree with that. Down the middle, it's hard. You got Danico Autry, Mario Edwards returns after violation.
I was a big fan of him at Florida State. I loved him. I want him to have a starting helmet, but he's been a good player in the NFL. Just one of those like rotational guys. And y'all got my guy Fatukasi from the Jets. I want him to be a Cowboy.
Fatukasi, man, has been phenomenal. He's and then him, and then we got
big fan of him.
Yeah, Tim Settle has been another under.
Tim Settle. Yeah,
Settle has been. So that and
they got really good depth on the defensive line.
They do. So that's what I'm saying. If you, like you said, go around the edges, that might be the best shot.
It ain't gonna happen, but that's your best chance.
Yeah.
Your best chance is gonna be on the left side, and I don't know how much it's gonna work, but that's the best chance you can if you want to try and develop a running game.
How many carries do you think Rico Dowd's gonna get this week?
I think you got to give him at least 15. And because here's the thing, they're going to abandon it soon because that's what they do. They abandon the run, and then eventually when they're down too much, then they go back to the run to run the clock out and get out of there. But I think, man, and by the way, they did announce it today that Rico Dowdle will be running back one moving forward, which is the right move. I don't want any more Zeke carries. As a matter of fact, any Zeke carries they would give, I would give to the fullback. I'm being dead serious about that. But Rico Dowdle, who for a while actually averaged over 5 yards per carry on the season, hadn't been able to live up to his full potential because they've been down early and they've had to abandon the run so much. So if you give him at least 15 carries, that at least is respectful for what you're trying to do with the running game. But here's what's going to happen. If the Texans score on their opening drive and the Cowboys drive down the field, have a good opening drive, and they settle for a field goal, which they do way too often, the game is over at that point. Because what happens after that is teams score on you again. The Cowboys are panicking, and they way too soon. They abandon their play calling, and then they have to punt, and then it just keeps on happening back and forth. So if the Cowboys respond to a touchdown with a field goal, the game is over at that point, even if it's the first quarter. Because I've already seen it happen so many times this year.
It's PTSD.
Yeah.
No, that's just learned behavior. Those are called habits. I ain't negative. I'm real.
No, you're being a realist.
Realistic aspect, a realistic point of view.
Yeah.
That's why people don't like me.
You gotta keep it real. I get you. You gotta keep it real. Call it how it is.
It's been a vending show when it comes to this Cowboys season, but I have a light question for you. So it's tacos and touchdown. We haven't gotten to the taco question. What is your favorite taco place to go to, and what is that go-to taco?
Well, he's out in Houston. He's got to have something. Come on.
Oh, yeah. We got plenty here, man.
I know you do. I was born in Houston. I know about Houston.
Oh, really?
I don't live there now. I live in San Antonio. I work down in San Antonio. I got nothing but love for H-Town.
Yeah, H-Town, man, is amazing. My favorite so far has been this place that's probably a good 20 minutes from where I live, but from my job is not too far.
20 minutes is worth the drive.
It's worth the drive, though. That's the thing. It is worth the drive.
It's worth that 3-hour parking lot called 610.
It's actually on 59 north, right across Joel Osteen's church. It's called 100% Taquito, and it's one of my favorites. The meat is just so tender. I like carne asada tacos. That's my jam.
Okay, so Carlos, you're from Texas, so I know you know this is the truth. I tell people who ain't from Texas when they come to Texas, if they want to know the difference between like actual authentic either Mexican food or Tex-Mex or like the generic stuff or whatever it is, I always tell them this: if you can't understand what the cooks are saying, and then you know they've been up since 4 a.m. getting that meat ready to go for the day, and that's when you know it's the authentic stuff.
Look, if one of the cooks in the kitchen is one of my uncles, and I'm like, and he's like, "¿Qué pasó, mijo?" I'm like, "Hey."
Okay, yeah. If you don't speak Spanish and you can't understand the cook, yeah, at that point. But if you come in, you speak Spanish, then I guess like the point's moved. But yeah, if the cook is speaking straight, not Texan, he's speaking Spanish. I'm like, okay, I'm about to get fast.
You're about to feast.
I'm about to drink the juices out of this taco.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so, you know, what's a funny story. I know. I'm sorry if y'all gotta go. We had this guy. Y'all, who did anybody watch Hard Knocks this past offseason?
No,
with the Bears?
I did.
I didn't watch it.
So check this out. This is so we do this thing. One of the key things that we've done over the last 2 seasons on our show and Just Fans has been we kind of reach out to college students that aren't really they play obviously D1 ball, but
Mhm.
they're not too highlighted. I guess they don't have that many highlights on whatever. And some of these guys may get invited to some private combines or whatever.
Right.
So I sent out an invite to one player, and it got to be oh gosh, I'm gonna get mad if I don't remember now. Wow, I lost my train of thought. Give me 1 second. I got it.
That's just killing me.
It's he was apparently he was a star in the Hard Knocks before being Hard Knocks this past season. He tore his ACL. Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. I hope he never sees this.
You talking about from the Jets?
No, from the Bears. He was a running back.
Hold
on. Give me 1 second. Say it again.
Was he from Howard?
Yes, from Howard.
I forgot his name.
Running back. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I can't believe I'm trying to blank.
We all look so smart right now.
Huh?
We all look so smart right now.
I know. He's from Howard. Yeah, he's from Howard University. Give me a second. I have him on there. Give me 1 second. Control. Okay.
Ian Wheeler.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Yes. I drew a blank right now.
I didn't watch Hard Knocks, so I ain't to blame. But I mean, you talked to the guy. So.
It's my ADD.
I feel bad that
my ADD, brother. Like it's my AD. No, I'm sorry. It's my ADHD that I'm just like, wait, what was it? And I just talked to him not that long ago. Anyway,
you should feel bad.
Yeah, right. I should feel bad.
We're cool.
Yeah. So I sent the message out. He was one of those guys that responded, and he's like, "Yeah, I'd like to be on your show because we just do these shows where we talk about these players. I look at some videos that they have some highlights, and we just kind of have them on. And we've done that for like 2 years, and we're doing it again." Once like all the college stuff is over, just to during draft time is really a great time for us, right? So he answered back and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to be on your show." He's a Houston kid, right? So we had a conversation because he's over there at Howard and Howard University, and that's up in the New England area, right? So, you all right?
Sorry, my dog got a hold of my cord on my little light.
There you
it's
go.
all good.
It's all good, man. And so I asked him, I was like, "Hey, man, so let me ask you a question." I was like, "You're over there in the New England area. How's the Mexican food over there since you're from Houston?" And he's like, he looked at me, he's like, "Trash." He's like, and it was one of those things that you bonded with because you're like, "Oh, brother, like the Mexican food, the best Mexican food is down here in Texas." And unless, again, you haven't been to Texas or either San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, the major, Austin, even like the major cities, if you haven't tried Texas Mexican food, it's a whole different experience that you can't even really explain. It's just you got to try it.
I've heard it's also pretty good in Arizona too.
I've heard. I can tell you this. I grew up in Northern California when I was a kid, Northern Cali. So my brother still lives over there. To be honest with you, I grew up a Raider fan for a long time when they were in Oakland, until we moved down to Houston. I know. And so we grew up with that food over there. The taste is different because over there in that area that we lived in, it's called Lee Grand Merced. Yeah, it's a really unknown town or whatever. But the produce is like fresh. It feels very fresh. Here in Texas, yes, we have HEB, we have Kroger, all that. But the produce over there, it just feels so fresh. Like it almost like you're tasting it straight out of the fields or whatever. I hope not, because pesticides. I'm sure. But anyway, still, like, it's a great. It tastes very different. It's still good, but in its own way. But I still prefer the Texas Mexican food any day of the week, twice on Sunday. That's how I feel about it.
That's your turn, Aaron. I've already said my piece. Jesus.
My
you. This is your show. What are you doing? Show, Jesus. What are you like 30 seconds of dead air because you're like, oh, is it your turn to talk? No.
I thought I froze for a little bit. I thought I froze. I was like, wait,
I'm
what?
sorry, Carlos.
I thought we froze.
The host of the show doesn't know how to be the host of the show.
No, you're good. Hey, I've had plenty of those, brother. I get you. I've had plenty of those. I'm like, what are we talking
dummy
about?
Energy? You fall asleep over there?
No, I got zoned into the conversation about Northern California and pesticides.
I was joking. Of course, I was just
zoned out.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm gonna have a long. Shane's gonna give me a long talking after this show. So
yeah. I ain't got the energy for that.
Yeah.
I'm busy a lot. Aaron knows how busy I am with radio, especially this time of year, because we're in a market that like sports, like the NFL teams, basketball, and college sports in San.
May I ask what station?
Say what?
May I ask what station?
760 the ticket in San Antonio.
760 the ticket. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I don't always put that stuff out there, but I mean, if someone asks, you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was like, I just didn't know what it was. Do y'all do it? Like, are y'all on the Odyssey app or no?
We're an iHeart radio station. Come on.
Okay, I was checking.
Man, you got offended a little bit.
That's fighting words right there. Talking about Odyssey.
Yes, Odyssey. All right, iHeart Radio.
The iHeart Radio app was the best place to get your podcast.
Hey, there you go.
Okay. I'm saying that in case someone's watching.
Yeah.
But
how did let me ask you this though, Aaron? How did you guys get this started? Like the name is awesome, Tacos and Touchdown.
Appreciate it. I actually had Shane on a couple of times, and I used to have another co-host at the time, but he had other things going on. But Shane reached out to me about he wanted to be a co-host, and I was like, I'm down for that because I love the perspective he brought about the Cowboys and the NFL in general.
I wanted another outlet to talk about the Cowboys because I used to host my own with someone else, but then their priorities got in the way, and then they couldn't host it no more. And I don't really like hosting shows by myself. I like to have conversations. I don't like to have monologue shows, you know. Which is why on my Believe in Texas Tech podcast, I'm still currently looking for a co-host, but I will only not you. I will only take like people that I think like will make the show better, but also the company has to prove it as well. So
of course.
So Aaron, again, he talked. I was on a show like 3 or 4 times before I said, hey, like, it's your show, but like, is it cool? Like, maybe if I'm on a little bit more, and then it became like this thing where I'm like, okay, I'll just be on every week.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and now he won't stop texting me.
Yeah, right. Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, hey man, you're engaged. Talk to your woman.
I do. I'm just.
Congratulations, bro.
Appreciate you. She just doesn't talk football like you say.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like I talk too much. But the problem is I got so much information to get out there that I've had to learn to control the not the tone, but the speed at which I talk. Because even though I have a lot to say, I've been told that I used to be able to talk really fast. So I've had to control my flow, but get the information out there. You know what I'm
saying? Yeah.
We're really the total opposite. People say I talk too slow, so I gotta speak.
You don't talk slow. You talk low.
Well, you got the Barry Manilow going on right now. All right, guys.
Barry Manilow boys.
Barry Manilow boys. Tacos and touchdowns with Aaron.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
At night.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Thursday. You know what it is. It's time for some tacos and touchdowns. You can either score a touchdown or you can score with some meat between your buns.
There you go, dude. That needs to be the opening line for the show, right?
Absolutely not. I don't want that out there. I don't want that out there at all. Actually, I'm actually embarrassed I just said that.
That's like tacos and touchdowns after dark over there. Saying
right after dark. When you get the tacos at 2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah. That's exactly what we're talking about.
That's the 2 to 3 a.m. taco spot talk right there.
Yeah, yes, sir.
The only tacos you get at 3 a.m. are Jack in the Box.
Oof. Early 20s just entered the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried those tacos about a couple weeks ago, and my stomach doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah. Your stomach is like, bro, you're over 20. It's no longer. They're no longer. I can't no longer handle those anymore.
We finished the Cowboys Texans conversation 15 minutes ago. We've been talking about nothing.
Hey, man.
What's there to talk about? They're gonna win. What you want to say?
I know. I'm ready for draft talk. I think it's basketball season.
Yeah, Spurs are doing good though.
Hey man, the Rockets aren't doing so bad either.
Rockets are killing it.
Oh.
Rockets are killing it. They can splash on the outside with the best of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but
all right, Aaron, go and wrap the show up. I think people are checked out.
Yeah, I think they clocked out just like how the Cowboys are. But before I let you go, Carlos, where can they check out your podcast and everything else?
All right, so if you want our podcast where we just our own podcast that we started a few years ago, and it's just shooting it with the boys or whatever. It's called the Just Fans Podcast at Just Fans 22 on X and on and on Twitter. I apologize, and X and on YouTube. Instagram at Just Fans Pod. I think that's where we met up there. Aaron, we communicate through there. But if you want a little bit more professional talk, we have our Bring on the Blitz podcast. It's under at B Blitz Pod, and that is our media outlets, our Esquina that gives us credentials to go to these Texans games, to interview the players, at B Blitz Pod, and that's a little bit more professional, and just follow us up there. And of course, at our Esquina at our OUR Esquina SQUINA, and you got some good. Our Esquina is really good at highlighting like Latino voices and players and in leagues. Some people that you may not even heard, some college kids that are coming up that you may have not heard, that are balling out as well. They also do a lot of good interviews with like baseball. They started, I may be mistaken, they might have started off with the baseball stuff. The owner used to be a beat writer for the St. Louis Cardinals back in the day, and then they have credentials for the Astros, so they're always interviewing Astros all the time. And I think the Dodgers, they went to the World Series and stuff like that. It was this past year to interview like Dodgers players and Yankees players too. So it was a lot of stuff that they're doing at our Esquina. So, that's our media outlet that we're going through, and that's about it. And of course, for me, if you want to follow me alone, right there, you got at Carlos Talks 24 on X, and that's where I'll be.
Thank you for being on the show, man.
Appreciate you the invite, man. Anytime y'all want to do this, just let me know. I'm all in.
Oh, for sure. This has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one.